Hello everyone, Ember Power here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be going over some recent cards that were revealed for the set Obsidian Flames. So Obsidian Flames is of course Scarlet Violet 3, which to be honest isn't releasing that far away. I have to check the exact date again, but it is pretty close. It is August, so yeah, should be pretty exciting. And there is a lot of the set that we haven't actually seen yet because Rule of the Black Flame is the Japanese set that's going to make up this one. So we haven't seen everything from that set yet, but there is still a decent amount of cards to review and go over. So the first card that we kind of have to talk about is this Glimmora EX, or Glimmora, however you want to pronounce it. 270 HP, stage 1 fighting type with the ability Dust Field that says as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't have more than 3 bench Pokemon. If you have 4 or more bench Pokemon, they discard bench Pokemon until they have 3 on the bench. If more than one effect changes the number of bench Pokemon allowed, use the smaller number first. So effectively, this is kind of like an Avery, but a permanent ability to have in play. Of course, it does have to be in the active spot, and this is a stage 1, but we can actually get this up and running turn 1 going second, because we do have the Glimmet, which does have Ascension that came out in Paldea Evolved. So it is actually possible to get this rolling turn 1 going second. I believe there's also an item card, energy sticker that's coming around in the set Pokemon card 151 that says flip a coin. If heads, you get to accelerate an energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So it might actually be possible to get Glimmora EX attacking as well, going second rather on the first turn of the game, because Poisonous Gem also kind of annoying to deal with. Does 140 damage for 2 fighting energy, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. It's an okay attack. You'll mostly be 2-hit killing things anyway with this deck. It's not going to be like a super 1-hit kill focused deck, but still not the worst card in the world, to be honest. I think this ability is really solid. Definitely very disruptive against stuff like Mew VMAX, as well as Lost Zone, which wants to have a large bench size. So honestly, I think this card could be pretty solid. Maybe with stuff like Tinglu and Crydon as well, it could be really decent. Honestly, I think the ability is definitely worth considering, and there's also the Glimmora single prize version. So Glimmora single prize, fairly decent card to be honest. It's a bit annoying to deal with, and definitely could be a nice single prize option in the Glimmora deck. The next up is we have a Scizor. I'm pretty sure this Scizor was revealed a little while back now, along with a bunch of other cards. But just reading it again here, Punishing Scissors does 10 damage for 1 Meta Energy, and then 50 more for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has an ability. So it's like one of these sorts of attacks. We've seen this fairly recently actually on a Flapple that did 50 times. So this is a plus 10 modifier, which is nice. But of course, the requirement being that it needs to be for Meta Energy, and Scizor has more hit points than a Flapple, so you can't find it with a level ball, which to be honest is pretty annoying in that kind of deck. So honestly, is this card pretty decent? It does want to kill Chien-Pao, which is nice, but Zoroark Box often has other options to hit massive damage against Chien-Pao. So honestly, I don't think this card is super useful for that deck, but maybe if we ever get a Scizor EX, this could realistically be a decent one of inclusion. The next up is we have a Mawile that says when you place a Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, during your turn you may discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Fairly decent ability to have around in the format, to be honest, if there's ever really one deck that wants to, abuse special energy. Mew VMAX comes to mind. Lugia, I think you're not really doing that much of an impact on them because they can accelerate so much with Archops. Plus, they're running so many special energy in their deck anyways. This feels kind of inconsequential, but maybe it's better than I think against Lugia. But honestly, more so a Mew counter than nothing else. But either way, nothing too crazy, I would say. We also have this Rhyme supporter card, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Draw 3 cards, then switch your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench, or you switch out your opponent's active. Okay, so your opponent gets to choose the new active Pokemon, so it's kind of like an escape rope plus draw 3, except, well, it's more like a repel actually, because, yeah, escape rope would allow you to switch, so it's just a draw 3 and then your opponent switches. Not a particularly great supporter, to be honest. Maybe a niche one-off and stuff like Gardevoir because they can find it easily with Gallade. I guess like decks that just play Gallade anyway would like this card. Just in case you want to force your opponent to switch out. There might be instances where they're deliberately not benching anything. So maybe they have one attacker and then one support Pokemon or something. Then Rhyme is essentially a gust at that point as well as, a plus draw 3. So I don't think this card is horrendously terrible for a draw 3 effect, but again, I don't think this card will be seeing a lot of play. Some other cards here, which we have seen before, but I'll just quickly go over some more thoughts on them that I've had since they were revealed, basically. This Charizard EX, supporting some amazing artwork. Infernal Rain and Burning Darkness, my opinions, to be honest, on this Charizard actually kind of remain the same. I think this card is really solid. I don't think it's anything too broken, but I do think this will be a very solid deck. Probably like tier 2, if I'd have to imagine. Could be higher, but honestly, it could be hard because of like God of War Mew being weak to dark, which is a big point about big point of appeal of this card, I guess. And there's also like the other Charizards that you could tack in, but that sounds kind of clunky. Still, I think this card is really solid. As for Ice Cube, okay, so we don't actually get a translation for this one, but this Ice Cube did like 160, and then you have to like discard an energy, and then you just your opponent's active can attack next turn or something like that. Don't think this card is particularly great, but could be a niche fire option for Back to Caliber if your opponent ever starts playing, like, if grass decks, I guess, ever become really popular, but grass decks would be, no one's really playing grass. So also that's another thing worth mentioning about Glimmora is it's weak to grass, and that's like a substantially better weakness than weak to psychic, which is what some fighting types have these days. So being weak to grass, definitely a lot better. But yeah, Ice Cube, super niche card, don't think it'll be seeing that much play. Tyranitar EX 120, and then I think it said just like mill the top 2 cards of your deck, I'm pretty sure. And then the second attack does 150 and 100 more if any of your bench Pokemon are damaged. Pretty solid card, to be honest. I ran a poll recently asking what people thought this card would be in tier wise. Most people said tier 2, which I thought was a bit surprising, to be honest. I don't think this card is that good, but I do think it'll make for a fun, tier 3 kind of rogue deck. Maybe it's better than I think it is because of the high hit points and high damage output, but still nothing too crazy. And then the other EX we will not review again because they're just horrendous. There were some EXs that I reviewed earlier in the video, but there wasn't like anything too wild. That Cleffa, draw cards until you have 7 cards in your hand. Pretty solid card, honestly. I could definitely see this being a one-of in a bunch of decks, especially decks that want more time to get set up. This Clefable EX is honestly pretty solid as well. All of your Pokemon in play that have Psychic Energy attached to them have no retreat cost, and then Wondrous Moon that does 170. You may move any number of Psychic Energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. So, honestly, not a bad card at all, especially paired with the Clefairy from Lost Origin. So you get multiple Clefairies, you start switching them around, accelerating all the Psychic Energy, and then you can just move them around with Wondrous Moon. So seems like a pretty solid deck, to be honest. The only other card really that was revealed, Revaroom EX, 280 HP, so pretty solid. Has the ability Tune Up. This Pokemon can have up to 4 Tool Cards attached to it. We have seen this ability a bunch before times in the past. Hasn't really done anything as of late. Honchkrow V, I think, was the last card to have this ability. Admittedly, Honchkrow has a pretty awful attack. Wild Drift is pretty solid, 170, and then this takes 3 less, but becomes a bit of a problem when you need 2 metal and a colors just to attack. It's not like 1 metal, 2 colors, which would have been substantially better, but yeah, Wild Drift. Kind of what worries me about this card is, just how you accelerate that energy. We don't have Metal Sorcerer anymore. You could use the Mugen Zone from Astral Radiance, but that's like a stage 2, and you're already trying to make room for all these different tool cards. Seems kind of bad, to be honest. I don't think this card is amazing. I know some people think it could be pretty solid as like a tanky stall deck, maybe, with like Rigid Band from 151. But honestly, I don't think this card is super great. Don't think there was anything else revealed on this post. Yeah, so nothing too crazy that we haven't already seen before. Then we have a new stadium to look at, Town Department Store, which says, once in your turn, that player may search your deck for a tool card. So I guess this is like a nice partner for the Revaroom we just looked at. Nothing too crazy though. I don't think this will be like exclusively great in Revaroom. I think this card is pretty solid in other decks as well. There's a lot of decks like Mew VMAX that just wants to run a bunch of one-off tool cards like Choice Belt or the Stone, the Forest Steel Stone, I forget what it's called. Or, Sky Steel Stone, I guess, in a toolbox style deck. So being able to just tutor out one of those awkward tools, I think is really solid. So I could definitely see Town Department Store having some niche success. Then we also have a King Gambit and a Revenge Punch tool revealed. So King Gambit has the attack Execute. If your opponent's active has 4 more damage counters on it, it is knocked out. And then it's supposed to kind of combo with this tool card that was also revealed. When this Pokemon its card is attached to is knocked out from damage by an attack, put 4 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So obviously, if you attach this to a King Gambit and they just knock it out, then you're not going to get the attack off. So that's kind of annoying. So probably Revenge Punch King Gambit could be a fun little deck to try out. Maybe you try and use stuff like that Cleffa that we looked at earlier. Maybe either the Cleffa or something like Radiant Jirachi could be a really solid option, or even Mew from Celebrations. You just stick a Revenge Punch on one of them, and then you try and go in for the King Gambit KO after that. But the problem with that is those Pokemon are kind of like low HP, so if your opponent uses a single prize attacker, then that's not really going to help you at all, really. And King Gambit, once you've got to chain those tools as well, you've got to keep attaching Revenge Punches. Seems kind of awkward, to be honest. There's also like limited ways of putting damage counters on. There's like a Starmie from 151, you can discard it from play, place 2 damage counters. Honestly, very hypothetical stuff. I think this card is subpar, to say the least, but I do think Revenge Punch will see limited use. King Gambit, probably a fun deck, nothing more really. I'm trying to look at the positives here, but honestly, I don't think this card is, I don't think it's going to see a lot of success. It's going to be a bit of a fun deck to try out, get some funny wins, but honestly, being a stage 2 and needing an awkward requirement like that, yeah, I don't think it's going to be particularly great. Then there was a Absol EX that was revealed. I think this was like one of the first reveals for the set. Has the attack future sight. Look at the top 3 cards of either player's deck, put them back in any order. A lot of people have pointed out that we're in a state in the game where this would have been so much better as an ability, and I do have to agree. Requiring to attack in order to use this effect is super annoying. Does mean that control is a bit limited, I guess, but if you really wanted to, this could be a niche option in control. And then the attack Cursed Slug. For 2 dark and a colorless, does 100 damage, and if your opponent has 3 or fewer cards in hand, this attack does 120 more. So 220 is okay, but for 2 dark and a colorless, it's just so much better to use different other attackers. Like we have the Terrestrial Charizard who can cover the dark options, and then there's just better attackers. Like Hisuian Samurai V-Star is better than this card, so that kind of says a lot. So I don't think Absol is particularly great, but I thought it was worth mentioning for at least the control aspect. Of course, you have stuff like Iona and Path to the Peak, maybe that could be okay, but honestly, I just don't think this card is particularly great. But yeah, this has been Ember Power. Let me know what you think about the new cards down below. Do you think Glimmora could be a pretty solid deck? Do you think Terrestrial Charizard is going to be great? And yeah, it's been Ember Power. Thank you for watching.